All right, guys, here we go. Got a little change of plans. We're going to stop with the last chapter, chapter 8, because as you guys are probably well aware, we kind of got a week cut off with how long the quarter was going to be. So I wanted to make sure that we got to chapter 9. I just find it to be some really important information. So I want to make sure that we got this out there. Bear with me. I'm going to introduce the content to you here today and have a little intro assignment. And then next week, we'll close off with a couple of assignments to kind of work with some of the material that we have here. So obviously, I'd love a little bit more time for this chapter, but that's what it is. So that's what we're going to do. So chapter 9 is inequalities of race and ethnicity. So I want to go through a couple of things here in terms of minority groups in the United States. We'll go through next week. We'll get into a little bit of treatment, disparities between the two, and we'll go there. So let's start off with what is a minority, okay? A minority in the United States, a group of people with physical or cultural traits different from those of the dominant group in a society, all right? And sociologists come up with 5 key features of a minority, okay? So like I said, this is from kind of the textbook idea of where sociologists stand on these 5 key features. And we can debate going back and forth the difference, what's right, what's wrong within this. But I do at least want to deliver this information to you, and then we'll go from there. You'll have somewhat of a reflective assignment to go with this one as we introduce this content. So what are these 5 key features? First one, distinctive physical or cultural characteristics which can be used to separate them from the majority. All right. So this could be based off of skin color, facial features, disabilities, okay, accent, religion, language. So really those things that, and we'll get to the definitions here in a second, those things that classify someone in a specific race or ethnicity. All right. So anyone outside of the majority group, okay, which we know in the United States is white. All right. Anyone outside of the majority group, okay, then falling into what is considered minority groups in the United States. Number 2, dominated by the majority. Dominated in what way? All right. So we're talking about in the way of access to opportunities, to get different goods and services, jobs. All right. And this is where we go back and look at when did this start, probably from the time of the beginning, and then moving forward with this. And we'll get into this a little bit more as we start to take a look at some of this stuff. All right. Minority traits are often believed by the dominant majority to be inferior. Like I said, this is kind of an archaic idea, but obviously is still around today. But if someone believes that they are superior, it'll justify their unequal treatment of then the minority group. Like I said, it's archaic, but let's be honest. We know that there's still individuals who feel this way. And I use this phrase down there as an ignorant statement that would possibly be put out there of someone in the minority group not getting a job because the idea that they're lazy, okay, which I said it's an ignorant statement, but that thought process for some is not probably out there. It is out there, unfortunately, and we'll get into this because what someone's perception. Remember, we talked about this before. If that's what someone's perception is, it becomes the reality. It may not be the actual reality, but if that's their perception, it's their reality. And this could be maybe something that's passed down to them from a grandfather, father, whatever it may be. Ignorant as it may be, it's still out there. 4, members of the minority have a common sense of identity with a strong group loyalty. All right, so empathy towards each other. All right, minority groups oftentimes stick together. Why would that? If you're in the minority, you're not in the majority. Let's just look at pure numbers. Okay, think about it. If you're rolling with a group of 3 people and you've come up to a group of 20, that three's got to stay together. Okay, so same thing in American society in the group of staying together. Okay, now could the 3 kind of work with the 20 and then become 23? In an ideal world, yes, but we know that that's not always how it works, okay? So we'll get into a little bit, obviously, that here, too, in the next week and a half. The we and the they vocabulary, right? We, they, describing other groups within the United States. Number 5, majority determines who belongs to the minority through ascribed status. And this is just if you're dealing with race and ethnicity, this is something that then you become a member at birth. All right, and when you're born into that idea. All right, or not into the idea, but you're born into being then the minority. Okay, so let's get and look at definitions. We want to start with race and ethnicity, oftentimes confused with each other as being the same thing, but they are not with this. So race, people sharing certain inherited physical characteristics that are considered important within a society. Okay, so if you go skin color alone, right? So if we identify someone as black or white, okay, that's race, that's skin color. We're not getting an ethnicity yet here. All right, and we do this with other physical characteristics. So all right, I'm gonna stop there before I get into the other thing. I was gonna go into something else, but I'm gonna wait. So then I'm gonna go into ethnicity here. So ethnicity, I don't know. I have it as ethnic minority because we're talking about minority groups. But the ethnicity is group identified by cultural, religious, or national characteristics. Um, and like I said, this is in contrast to race. Uh, People used to refer to supposed biological characteristics that distinguish one group of people from another. Um, so ethnic referred to the people who identify with one another on the basis of common ancestry, all right, and cultural heritage. The sense of belonging centers on their nation or their region of origin, maybe distinctive foods, clothing, language, music, religion, or family names and relationships. Like I said, people often confuse these two. Um, let's look at, for example, Jews. All right. Many, and even some Jews, consider Jews a race, but probably more properly considered an ethnic group, um, since it's their cultural characteristics, especially their religion, that bind them together. So wherever Jews have lived in the world, they have intermarried. Consequently, so like Jews in China may have Chinese features, while someone in Sweden would have, those more Swedish features in terms of the racial features. All right. So, because when we determine race by these biological pieces, the ethnicity piece to being like the Jewish, you're going to look more Swedish, you're going to look more Chinese. So, to kind of distinguish between what these are. But there you go. All right. And it can be a little confusing when looking at this. So, next thing we want to look at here is the negative attitudes towards ethnic minorities exist partly due to ethnocentrism. All right, kind of that idea of us versus them. Everybody should be well aware of this idea and this concept. We talk about ethnocentrism in terms of um, American culture, right? So if you remember, we decide if you went to live in a foreign country, how should you live? And this ethnocentric ideas of where we feel wherever we're from is the more dominant idea. Um, and most people believe that their values are inferior to all other values. And not, I shouldn't say, it says most, but a lot of people, let's just say, believe that their values are inferior to other values. So we don't oftentimes empathize someone else's values. Now, it depends on what we're talking about here. Like treating somebody fairly should hopefully be everyone's value, but we don't always, because we feel ourselves inferior or superior to the other. There is no half sheet survey. All right. Actually, I'm going to stop here. I'm going to let you digest this research, because we're going to have a little bit of an assignment to go with this. This is a Pew Research poll that was done, and this is looking at how people's perceptions of each other and how they feel based off their specific race. So hopefully you're able to kind of understand the difference here. So I'll show you the first one to kind of clarify this. So the not the bold heading, but right below it says percent of each group saying each of the following has happened to them because of their race or ethnicity. So people acted like they were suspicious of them. All right. So who identified with that idea because of their race? All right. Not just people acted suspicious, but 65% of Black people said that people acted like they were suspicious of them because of their race. And then you go down to the bottom of that, 25% of white people say that they acted suspicious of them because of their actual race. All right. And then you see Asian and Hispanic in between those two. So people acted like they thought they weren't smart. So 60% of Black people identified that was because of their race, while 26% of white on the other end. And then once again, you have those in between. So I want you to kind of take a look at this poll here, and then we'll have an assignment with it that will be relative to this. All right.